Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another Seniors Blue Book University. I'm your guest host, Rebecca Benson. I have been working with Seniors Blue Book for the past few years behind the scenes, but today I'm hopping on video with these two lovely ladies, and we're going to dive into smart money and how we can plan for retirement. So I'm just going to ask you guys to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about you. Andrea, if you want to start first.
Sure. I'm Andrea Sieradzki. I'm the Area Sales and Marketing Director for Volunteers of America. I've been here for about 5 years now. I've been in senior living my entire career, so it's spanned many decades at this point. But I'm thrilled to be here and happy to talk about retirement living and how that can work into your plan and actually how a continuing care retirement community can be an asset in your portfolio.
Great, that's awesome. And what about you, Sierra?
So my name is Sierra Butler, and I am an elder law attorney. I serve clients in both Sarasota and Manatee counties. And I absolutely love what I do. And one of my favorite things is doing education pieces like this. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're happy to have you guys. And, we just enjoy providing expert guidance from people like you for seniors in our area. So, just to get started here, Sierra, could you talk about, a few key pieces or documents that you should have in place if you're trying to plan for retirement?
Sure. And, when we talk about, I always talk about kind of planning in two ways. What happens if you're alive but incapacitated, and what happens to your stuff when you're gone? And when you're alive but incapacitated, there are 4 documents in Florida that are important to have. One of them is a healthcare surrogate, one of them is a living will, one of them is a pre-need guardian designation, and the last one is something called a durable power of attorney for finances. And when we're talking about retirement and finances and documents to have, that would be the one document that actually governs what happens if you become incapacitated. But there are a few things that are incredibly important about a durable power of attorney. And in Florida, it used to be that you could have what we call a springing power of attorney, meaning you would sign the document and you would wait until you become incapacitated for then it to become effective. That's no longer allowed in Florida. So when anyone does a durable power of attorney, when you sign it, you are actually, upon delivery, if you deliver it to the person you're naming, if you're the principal, you're creating it, if you're the agent, you're the person who's going to act, upon delivery, it's effective. So it's really important that if you're going to do that, we really need to understand what the document does. And then working with your, for example, insurance providers and banking institutions to decide when you want to register that power of attorney, which would help if you become incapacitated and then someone needs to step in, stand in your shoes in order to effectuate whatever needs to be done.
Gotcha. Okay. Definitely great information to have and to outline. And then, once you kind of have everything in place, what's the difference between getting the elder law planning in place versus like your estate plan in place? The financial.
So that's a great question. And one of the differences that I see is an elder law attorney, and there are all kinds of even elder law attorneys. So generally, an elder law attorney is someone who focuses in an area of law that potentially helps the elderly or their loved ones or their caregivers. And so, for example, one part of, I have an elder law practice, but one part of it is estate planning. However, there are different estate planning attorneys that have a specialization maybe in tax or family held businesses. So the elder law encompasses more things, not just estate planning usually. So for example, I do Medicaid planning, and I also do guardianship and dealing with capacity issues and helping those people who are named agents and powers of attorney and healthcare surrogates navigate, follow the law, and make sure they do what they're supposed to be doing in order to carry out look after the best interests of whoever is named them in a document. So elder law is a little bit, there's just more variety and more things, but it always is centered around elders. And usually an estate planning attorney isn't doing those other things and dealing with capacity issues, but they may have more of a focus and specialization with respect to, within estate planning, more complicated matters.
Okay. All right. And then, Andrea, could you just kind of touch on, when we're planning for retirement, how senior housing could be a part of that, and then tell us a little bit about what your community has in terms of levels of care and what we would need to plan for to be a part of a CCRC like your community.
Sure. There's a variety of senior living options out there. So when you go to take a look around, there are rentals, there are entrance fees, there are continuing care retirement communities, there are standalone buildings. So truly a continuing care retirement community, if you're looking for more of an asset in your portfolio, it helps you to plan out your care for the future far better. Continuing care retirement community would have all three levels of care, independent living, assisted living, and a memory support component as well, in addition to a skilled nursing facility. In order for a community to say they're continuing care, they need to have that skilled nursing component. So when you're looking around, there are, when you purchase in, it's an entrance fee. You receive something called life care, which means should anything happen to you physically or financially, you remain in your apartment in the community for life, regardless of your ability to pay for your monthly fee, which is huge. It's a huge safety net for a lot of people. So in order to receive that, we do ask that you qualify both financially. We do a financial affordability software program, as well as health-wise, that you're able to live independently. So in addition to that, once you go through those application procedures, you are able to purchase an apartment, move in, and then receive the life care component. When you are here, you have the ability to transition through the different levels of care, and that's truly the peace of mind for not just you, but your family as well, to know that you have a solid plan in place. A lot of people say, oh, I'll just wait and see what happens. I think the thing of it is, it's not if it happens, it will be when it happens. And when it happens, do you want to be that proactive person that has that plan in place, that your family and or I say your posse behind you know what they should do for you if you're unable to speak for yourself, to Sierra's point. So the bottom line is having that plan can truly be an asset in your portfolio, looking at the differences of needing the different care, and also to help offset the costs and insulate your nest egg, so to speak, in the long term.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that, here at Seniors Blue Book, we do get those calls, and sometimes it's an emergency, and, we don't want to be in that spot, or you don't want to be in that spot with a loved one. So if you can plan ahead, that's so important, and that's, why we want to bring experts like you into the light to talk about these kind of issues. And, Andrea, could you talk about, when is it too early to, contact a community like yours, or what is kind of that time frame that people usually, come and speak with you?
So it is typically when something happens. People do sometimes wait, sometimes it is reactionary, but I think more and more what's happening every day in the United States is we're having 10,000 people turn 65 every single day in the U.S. It's happened for the last 8 years. It's going to happen for another 8. So truly, I think the boomers are now being a little more proactive, looking to their different options. Actually, our company has a continuing care at home program that is a CCRC that comes to you inside your home. You pay a one-time membership fee, and it wraps around you just as you would receive if you moved to, I'll call it a bricks and sticks. I think the thing of it is, as time goes on and more people are turning 65, we are definitely not going to have enough communities or enough buildings to help everyone when they do have their needs change and they do need more care. So to have your foot in the door somewhere is smart. So I would say the earlier the better. The earlier that you start planning, the better your options are. You're the youngest you're ever going to be today. You're probably the healthiest, who knows? But it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So looking to what your options are, what's going to work best in your budget. Not everyone wants to move to a community. A lot of people do want to stay home and age in place as well. So there are so many options to choose from. I'd say start your journey now and looking at what is out there so you can make some informed decisions. And we urge people, whatever it is, just create a plan. Not only that, share it with your spouse, share it with your loved ones. So when that crisis hits, when that moment hits, you have all of your plan, your documents, your plan of where you want to go completely in place. And then your family members can be rest assured to know that they are fulfilling exactly what you want to happen versus scrambling to try to figure out what they think you might want.
Not agree with that more, Andrea. Having
you,
been
Sierra.
on the other side of that, of families, not knowing what their loved one wanted, when if it was just in a document or had been even at least shared, it would have made their job a little bit easier during what's already a difficult time.
Absolutely, 100% agree. And I mean, you've touched on kind of everything that a CCRC can offer and like why it is so important for you to have that guideline, if not so that you have peace of mind, but that, your children will have peace of mind. And then once you kind of have made a plan, and let's say, they've made a plan of action to kind of join your community, what are those advantages, be financial, of purchasing into a community like that in terms of tax advantages and just having that investment in the community. And then I guess another part would just be, let's say you pass, what does that look like in terms of an asset for your adult child?
Right. So the great part is all CCRCs are governed under Chapter 651 of the Florida statutes. So when you do purchase in, your monies are protected. So I'll kind of start with that. You have different refundable contracts, 80%, 50%. Our community has 4 different types. Most entrance fee communities do. So just depending on what your assets and income level are and what's most comfortable inside your budget, we sit down and talk with everyone individually. So if anything were to happen and you completely leave our community, your estate or you, or whatever the case may be, will receive a portion, maybe 0, maybe 50, maybe 80% back or 100% back of what you've purchased into. In the interim, you do receive all the benefits of having that continuing care contract. So, for example, and everywhere is a little bit different, but for us, you start off in a studio apartment somewhere around $97,000 to purchase in, and monthly service fees start off about $1,700. Goes up from there according to what size you're looking at. The bigger, it gets a little more the bigger you get. And then for our continuing care at home program, which is that CCRC that comes to you inside your home, it's about 1/3 of the cost, dependent on your age. So that's the other difference is it's actuarially based. Your one-time membership fee would be, if you're 60, it's going to be far less than if you're 90. So planning ahead, taking a look at some people, if they wanted to do a reverse mortgage in their home to help fund care, or if they wanted to use a health savings account to pay for some of an entrance fee or a membership fee, you can do that as well. The tax advantages are wonderful. If you itemize, you can deduct all of your non-refundable portion of your entrance fee and or membership fee in the year in which you purchase as a prepaid medical expense. And then your ongoing every year monthly service fees can also be deducted if you itemize on an annual basis. So truly the tax advantages, the peace of mind, when you take a look at the whole thing, it's truly the best value out there to know that you have that care as well as that asset insulation against future rising healthcare costs. And for those of you that don't know, typically, I mean, one thing we can definitely guarantee is healthcare costs are going to rise every single year. I can guarantee that. It's done it for the last how many years I've been in healthcare, and it will continue to based on the number of people that are over the age of 65. And so anywhere from 8 to 12% annually is a pretty good range to plan for when you're looking at how much will healthcare costs go up every year.
Absolutely, amen to that. I mean, Sarah, now that she's talked about what could happen, after, you might leave the community, or let's say you pass, like, how can your family be protected, or, that legacy that you're trying to leave your family, how can they protect that estate, and what would that look like?
So lots of different things for lots of different people, right? Because not everyone's, the same. But there's a couple of kind of general rules that you can kind of keep in mind. So one thing that Andrea mentioned was, she said in her thing, you're going to have a contract in this particular case. And it sounds like in that contract, you can leave what I would call sort of a beneficiary designation. And so if you can do so, you would want to, leave it to who you intended to, versus potentially if you just left it and didn't fill that out, or left it to your estate. That would be what we call not avoiding probate. And the downside to probate is you're dealing with creditors, and you're dealing with paying lawyers a percentage of the probate. So a lot of an estate planning piece is trying to avoid that probate cost. And you can do that in different ways. Florida has some special deeds you can use. Trusts are used to avoid probate, and there's all kinds of trusts, but the concept of a trust is if I create it, I get to make the rules of the trust. I'm going to designate somebody else who's responsible to follow those rules when I'm gone, or if I'm alive and incapacitated and I can't do it myself, if we're talking about a revocable trust. And then after it's accomplished your goals, it could be, I just want everything distributed out, when I'm gone, or I have grandchildren and I want to make sure that there's a piece for each of them. Or I've got a child and I don't really trust them because they've had some maybe drug issues in the past, and they want to make sure that that money goes to a good cause and not, to a bad habit. So those are the reasons. Trusts are about control. So sometimes that's a way to accomplish a goal of avoiding probate, but also accomplishing another goal that you have for your own estate planning. So those are kind of a little general overview of the different ways and the different things that you want to do. But normally you want to avoid probate. That's generally the buzzword that you hear. There are some very limited circumstances where you actually want to force the probate. It's a Medicaid situation, but we do not have time for that today. But it's just important that you think about those things and work with somebody that can really help you understand, okay, well, if I do this on a beneficiary designation, or I have a trust, am I going to fund the trust? I see lots of trusts that are beautiful documents where assets were never titled in the trust or left, to the trust. And so they didn't really get fulfilled and used what the clients really had intended.
Gotcha. And again, just to reiterate kind of timelines with everything, I mean, what's the earliest somebody can start this, and is there a mark where it's too late?
When you turn 18 is when you become an adult in the eyes of the law. And I'm going to say this, I know we talk about seniors, but I'm going to say this because you may be a senior and you might have a kid going off to college. It's really important that they do a document too, because you want to be able to, stand in and be the person that can make those decisions and help out if something were to do that with them. Now, generally, everyone should always have a plan, because there is a default plan. And if you're incapacitated and you've not done a document, the default plan is a guardianship, which is so costly. And when we talk about we want to avoid probate, we want to avoid guardianship. That is the last place that I never want anyone to end up. Sometimes it's necessary to help avoid exploitation, or I give the perfect example of someone's driving when they shouldn't be. Even if you do a power of attorney, a healthcare document, it doesn't take away that person's right. That's what guardianship does. The only way to stop that person from driving is to take away their right to drive. So that's why it's a big deal. You're taking away a civil rights. You have to be very, very judicious about it. But those are, avoiding guardianship and avoiding probate are the two things that I think about on a daily basis with all my clients. That's so incredibly important.
Gotcha. And Andrew, do you have any last comments on anything that Sierra said, or?
Well, I'll tell you, it goes all hand in hand, okay, in the planning. So the pre-planning, the proactive planning, not waiting for something to happen. And I think the sooner the better is what I hear Sierra saying as well.
Now,
It's never too early.
Do it
Never too
yesterday.
early.
And I
Yeah.
know life gets in the way, and I get it. And I'll be the first to admit, my husband and I didn't re-update our documents until, a week before we were getting on the plane to, Europe, because, I think life happens and you get busy. And it's interesting how much, you think that one thing that you thought about for so long, and you think this is what I want, and then kind of life happens, and you're like, well, that actually changes. So if you do have that change, it's incredibly important to make that change, because just saying it, if you already have a legal document, you're going to need to update that. And those can be simple amendments or revoking and redoing, but you got to have it in writing, properly executed.
100%. I mean, I know I'm guilty of not planning, even though I'm a planner in different aspects of my life, and it is just so important. But ladies, thank you so much for coming on and being a resource that seniors and, pretty much anyone of any age, if they're interested, can go to. We'll make sure to have your information in the description next to the video. And then if anybody has any questions, you can feel free to call Andrea or Sierra and set up a time to talk with them.